Hi and welcome wherever you are in the world on this beautiful planet, whatever time it is for you. It's 4 o'clock here in the UK and 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and we are ready here today on the Cosmic Prayer to welcome in this week's inspirational super guest. And I feel very grateful and honored to be in the presence of an amazing teacher, a minister, a doctor, a person who really inspires many, many others to use the practices and principles of science of mind and new thought in everyday life, because that's what we're doing. We're using these principles so that we can experience a better life, or a better understanding and a deeper understanding of life and of what we truly are, that is love. And so today's guest, Reverend Dr. Petra Weldes, the co-spiritual leader of CSL, Center for Spiritual Living in Dallas, is here to share with us on New Thought Media Network, to share with us her idea of prayer. Dr. Petra came onto the Cosmic Prayer a couple of months ago to talk about prayer and how it really informs her life and how she uses prayer. And that was an incredible broadcast. If you want to go back onto YouTube on the network, New Thought Media Network, you can find that broadcast. However, wait, don't do it yet, because we have more here. Stay here for now. We have more here right now with Reverend Petra Weldes. Welcome to the Cosmic Prayer. It's so great to be back here with you today.
Yay, thanks, Laura. I'm super excited to be here with you today.
Oh, it's amazing. How's it been? How are you there in Dallas?
Well, we're slowly but surely opening up. We find our pandemic numbers falling, thank God. We've been a hotspot, red zone for 2 years now. We've opened and closed a couple times. And we seem to finally have passed through the last big winter freeze. So we're ready for spring.
Oh, fantastic. And all those new beginnings. And yes, I know that you're creating and offering many, well, beautiful offerings that people can find at CSL does. And we're going to talk about those a little bit later on in the programming today. But for now, let's talk about prayer. I'm really inspired to go a little deeper today. I know last time you shared your personal stories and your deep understanding of prayer from your perspective. Today, I would really love to delve into how prayer works. Mm-hmm. What are we doing from a metaphysical and maybe a scientific perspective? Maybe just for now, what are we really doing when we pray?
Yeah, Laura, that's a great question. And it's so profound to think about that every spiritual tradition talks about prayer, talks about really aligning ourselves. And usually it does mean telling the universe, God, something outside of ourselves, what we need and want, and sometimes what they, he, it, she ought to be doing about it. Which I always find very fascinating. I actually grew up in a household where there was that kind of prayer, big, long prayers about what was wrong with the world and what should be done about it. And yet from a metaphysical point of view, and well, let me just say, and prayers in all spiritual traditions have been answered. And they haven't been. Some haven't been, and some have been, right? And so the question, of course, is what is going on, and why is that? And ultimately, it seems to me what's happening in our work that we do in our spiritual mind treatment, in our prayer, is that we're actually doing the work on ourselves. We're actually aligning ourselves with what we believe to be true. And we are, in doing that, we're actually giving new direction to the creative process, to the universal law, which is already working all the time anyway. I mean, we're always praying. We're always praying. Anytime that we have thoughts and thoughts that have a lot of repetition to them or a lot of feeling to them, ultimately is what we are praying. It is what we are setting, how should we say it? It's what we are attending to in our own consciousness. And it is that which we are attending to in our own consciousness that is what is directing the law and allowing us to be co-creative. So what prayer does is to help us refocus what we're attending to. And what should we say, the caveat, the big piece of it is when we are attending to something we believe to be true. So we call this a belief, right? Or something that we have a feeling about. I can pray all I want, but if I don't believe what I'm praying to be true, it's not going to happen. It is when I shift into that place where I go, oh, that's right. That is actually true. There is abundance in the universe and it's mine. Humanity is awakening. And besides the war and climate change, I can see all this good. All these people are working for peace and for a healthy planet. And I can believe that things are in fact moving for good. In that moment, I've given that as the direction to the co-creative process, which is happening all the time. So what we're doing is being intentional about how we are aligning ourselves and how we're using that co-creative process. That's what I think.
Oh, that's juicy. Because the point where you're talking about believing, for me, it could be, oh, okay, I'm using spiritual mind treatment to allow me, to assist me with that belief. Because maybe if I'm praying or using spiritual mind treatment, sometimes I'm doing it by using, I get into the feeling of it. Mm-hmm. That may not necessarily mean that I really believe it.
Yes, I think that's the mistake we make when we use the term feeling. I don't need to feel my spiritual mind treatment. What I need to do is be convinced of its efficacy, which means that I actually have conviction. I have to have conviction around the way the co-creative process actually works, which means I have to actually understand something about the nature of reality. How does creation happen in the first place? And how am I doing that in my own life? So it's less the feeling as it is the conviction of the process. And it is in spiritual mind treatment, it's in doing it and seeing the manifestations that we build that conviction. And so our belief is fundamentally, to start out with, our belief is in the fact that there is a co-creative process, which ultimately isn't something we have to believe in, right? You don't believe in gravity. You just use it.
So, for example, if there is somebody, maybe a viewer right now or in the future, somebody that's watching this that really, from an atheist perspective, from that perspective, if they're holding that, they just don't believe, how could they, or would they even, they may not even want to use spiritual mind treatment for their lives, because step one, that's the first, the initial, there is one God, one power, one presence. That we have to have that initial, that's it. We have to believe that in our hearts. If I don't believe that there is one, how can spiritual mind treatment work?
Well, I would simply remove the word God.
Yes.
Right. I don't ever use the word God because it has too many implications of a deity, right? An atheist says there's no theos. Well, science of mind says the same. So let me make an enormously heretical statement in that science of mind is essentially atheistic, because theism means we believe in a being God. No, what we believe is actually a radical monism. Everything is one. Everything is part of the whole. Everything. Creation, the creative process, the impulse of life itself, that's all part of a single whole. And if you go to science and you go to the last 100 years in science, the quantum physics, the quantum field says exactly and precisely the same thing, that it's all one. It's all a part of one infinite reality. And so in our first step in spiritual mind treatment, we're reminding ourselves of this one, and we're reminding ourselves of truths about it. Well, one of the fundamental truths about this one is that it is for life. If it weren't, eventually the universe would simply disappear, right?
Right.
It would implode upon itself. Even the worst cataclysmic events,
yes,
ultimately create space and place and even seed more life. I mean, think about volcanoes. The lava flow is some of the richest soil in the world. Huge flooding. I mean, beyond this ridiculous flooding that's based on climate change, but normal flooding is necessary. It replenishes the soil. And so these cataclysmic events that we think are so horrible actually are part of life for life. And if there's an extinction in the normal course of life, not this massive extinction die-off we're having now, but in the normal course of life, right, life re-emerges stronger, better, more able to be life. And so all of the qualities that we ascribe to the one are the absolute qualities of presence and love and joy, and they all fall out of this deep belief that life is essentially for itself, and it makes everything out of itself. So rather than using the word God, we can use the word life or universal spirit or universal creativity or the universal intelligence, or there's lots of ways that we can get a hold of it. And then what we do in spiritual mind treatment, right, the second step is to remember that we're actually able to learn and use laws, because we are consciousness having become aware, right? It's the same thing that helps us fly airplanes and go to the moon and, you know, all the things that we do, medicine and everything else. And so we're now able to discover and use the laws, whereas the tree simply is the law of growth, growing. It is itself doing, right? And so here's the part that just really excites me. I used to say that in spiritual mind treatment, we're rearranging the molecules of the universe, that we're essentially recognizing that physicality is Play-Doh. It has no cause of its own. It's actually the impulse of life, of spirit, of God, if you want to use that term, that is arranging the molecules into whatever creation through the process of an intelligent law. Okay, so if you study the quantum field and quantum physics, there's something really remarkable going on. Even some of the words that are used are exactly the same words the mystics have used about this one infinite reality. So the quantum field is understood as the fabric of the universe.
Yes.
That out of which everything is made, but is no thing of itself. Wait, doesn't that sound suspiciously familiar? Right?
Yes.
Spirit makes everything out of itself. The one life makes everything out of itself, but it is before creation, it is no thing. The Hindus call it the pregnant void, right? The ultimate nothing from which all things come. So here we have this quantum field, and in the quantum field, we have waves and particles. And we used to say that the wave turned into the particle, right? And that it would wink into existence, turn into a particle, and then wink out of existence. Well, come to find out, that's not exactly true, right? They now call it a wave particle, all one word,
right?
Wave particle, right? So it's a little bit like us saying, well, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. Well, actually what I am is a spiritual human.
Yes.
A human spirit.
Yes.
Right? Because they're
we can't separate it.
You can't. One is the absolute possibility, and the other is the individualized particular.
Yes.
So causes the wave as it moves through its own, the fabric of the universe, to polarize, to, in our language, individualize. Well,
Yes.
they don't really know. It's called the measurement barrier. They don't really know, except that it happens. Very interesting. We don't necessarily always know how that which we intend demonstrates, and yet it does. And so
Yes.
what is it, right? So far, the closest that they've come is this notion, you all know it, right? From the double slit experiment, blah, 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 all the different ways. It's called the observer effect. You don't actually completely understand how it works, but I would submit that we do. That we are literally, in our spiritual mind treatment, in our prayer, when we get to the third step and we're describing the end result, we're imagining it, we're making it real to ourselves as an actual, not just potentiality, but we're now standing inside it. Whether it's a week from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, we're standing inside of it and said, yes, this has happened. This is my experience. It is already done. What we're doing in that moment is we are collapsing the wave into the particles. And that's what they call it in quantum physics. It's the collapse of the wave field into a particle, which causes it to wink into existence. And it has a probability of winking into existence in a lot of places, including going through walls. It's wild. It's wild.
So can I give you I don't want to interrupt. I just would like to embellish on it, because first of all, there's two questions. I know you're on a roll and it's amazing. It's
all right. Stop me.
So yesterday, me and Jason, my partner, we're talking about, wanting to move, and we know there's a certain area that we'd like to move to. So we walked past and we talked about it yesterday before we went out for our walk. Went out for a walk, walked past the area, the few houses that we really like, stood there, looked at them, talked about them, imagined ourselves, oh, this is amazing. And a woman just came walking up the street as if she knew us and said, hello, how are you? Are you enjoying looking at these houses? And we started talking to her, and she happened to be a neighbor who knew the man that owned them, who took our number and said she would contact him and the other neighbors, because she knew most of the community, to see if anybody was readily available to rent any properties. And she was texting us last night, and it was just like, we both walked away. Okay, this is how it works.
Right.
This is how it works. She went off into the distance and we went off, and really kind of mouths open, but also knowing this is how it works.
Right. Which is why, of course, we feel like it's magic, and we call it a miracle.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So the other piece, that while you're in this third step, or this place here of realization, do you believe there, when you're saying we're standing in the knowing, and we have this belief, and is it the knowing of the feeling of how we want to feel when this experience comes, or is it the knowing that this experience is here? So what I'm asking you is, I suppose, are we conjuring up this feeling, or are we conjuring up a new form within us of how we want to see it materialized within the treatment? So it's like,
I would say those are not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
I mean, I think sometimes you're doing one and sometimes you're doing the other. It depends on how committed you are to a particular form. Yeah. Right. I think that's the difference between doing our spiritual mind treatment for something specific, or doing spiritual mind treatment for a more general experience of life in a certain particular area of our life. We call that developing consciousness. Yes. And so sometimes our spiritual mind treatment is about developing consciousness, and we know that we're simply attracting whatever forms are compatible with that consciousness that completely fill it, right?
Okay.
But, you know, if you want a particular car or a particular job or a particular type of experience, there's no reason why you can't be that specific. You can actually be that specific.
Yes.
And I think that we make too much out of specificity is going to limit us. Well, yeah, that's what happens every time you pick a menu item.
Right.
You limit your experience of that particular dinner. And that's exercising our power of choice. And so if you have something you specifically want to manifest, a PhD in, I don't know, 14th century Japanese literature, then for God's sakes, go ahead. Right? If that's what floats your boat and that's what it is, then...
And then come on the Cosmic Prayer, please, and talk about it, because that would be interesting.
But if what you want to do is to get a PhD in literature in a way that allows you to make a literature come alive to high school students, you might enter a PhD program and be more open to the possibility of what exactly, where would you aim your degree, and what might your thesis be about? And do you see, because you know what your end result is, and the kind you want to work in that with teenagers, and that right? Do you see? So you maybe aren't as specific, but you have a sense of it. Or for me, I really learned this when I started doing treatment around a healthy relationship. Instead of, this is the list of things I want from a person. Well, hell, I couldn't even fit my own list. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And really, it's totally inappropriate as far as I'm concerned. And so things I really worked on the treatment that I would become kind of person, that the kind of person I want to be with would want to be with. I had to see myself as a really good catch. And then I really worked on a healthy primary relationship. That was it. That was it. Whatever that means, whatever that looks like, however that evolves, whatever now, later, I had no form to it, but I had the sense of it. Right. And so again, and I think we spend way too much time telling each other which way we should be doing it and what's right and what's best and better. And I think it depends on what it is we're seeking to create.
Yes.
Well, and let me say one more thing. The difference between what we want to manifest and what we want to create, right? Sometimes I want to manifest a thing, and by God, I get to do that. And other times I want to create my life in certain ways. And that is a very different feeling tone to my spiritual mind treatment.
And that's where I woke up this morning saying to myself, okay, I'm using spiritual mind treatment now for the nature of abundance for me, for my life, to know what abundance feels like, and actually to really expand on that knowing in my treatment.
Right.
And I agree, because it's doing it from both ways, actually, using that and experimenting with it, and then zoning in on, actually, this is what I really want. Gives me that feeling of freedom and that sense of freedom. I was just wondering, though, because I hear so often, and I think it's a very Holmesian kind of thing, get into the feeling of it, as we were talking about before.
Well, and I think really what he means, if you really pay attention to what he's talking about, it is the feeling of conviction, and it is the feeling of having already received it.
Yes.
Right. And so one of the ways that I do that in my spiritual mind treatment is I imagine myself on the other side. When we stand on this side and we look, well, I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know how that's going to get created. I don't really, that's where we get all the yeah buts and I got to figure it out and blah, blah, blah. But if we stand over there in the future and we look back over our shoulder, we already have or have accomplished or whatever it is. We're seeing it from a totally different point of view. It would be like standing in your garden and already seeing the fully mature oak in your mind, standing there and going, oh my God, you're so beautiful. I'm so grateful that you have grown like this. And I love the fact that we have now woodpeckers because of you, and that we've been able to hang for years. We've been able to bring, right, you already see in your mind's eye, and some people don't visualize very well, so they feel it in their heart. Or
I was going to mention that. Yes.
Right. And that's why this word feeling is no better than seeing. Yes. Right. Because we're all a little different, but we have some sense of it already being there. And when we can stand there already being, we can look back and go, oh yeah, and I nurtured you the whole way, and I remembered to water you, and I remembered to prune you, and oh look, and how nice that was. And wait, we can actually then we can feel how effortlessly it came about. And I think that's the other place of feeling. Mm-hmm. And so one of the words that Ernest Holmes uses to describe this feeling, which I really love, it is the feeling of acceptance. That I accept that it is actually already accomplished. It's already accomplished in consciousness. Now it's just the space-time continuum catching up, molecules of the universe being rearranged, me doing whatever my part is, all of that happening, but the outcome is assured. That feeling of acceptance is, I think, a lot of what he also means by the term feeling. We have to feel it. I like the word experience. We have to experience it as real. However we experience that, right? Mentally, yes. Heartfelt, in our bodies, however we experience it as real.
So if we can have, or if we are, for those that have a wonderful ability to visualize and, to put the color and the people and the places and the whole, would you say that is a really, that can really kind of like turbocharge? It's almost like to visualize at the same time during that realization, or is it more about just this deep acceptance, acceptance?
I think we get to it whatever way we get to it. I think that it would be inappropriate to make visualizing primary. I notice for myself, I get maybe a glimpse of something. I don't walk around it like a movie,
right?
Not by any means. What I tend to experience is what it, I try not to use the word see or feel, because I think it separates us from people who do it differently. So I try to, I try to sense myself in it. So when I'm like now on this show with you, right? Beforehand, I'm sensing myself as, you've called me a subject matter expert. Wow. Do I feel like a subject matter expert? I don't know. What if I sensed myself to be a subject matter expert? Well, I would be less nervous. I would trust that what was coming out of my mouth would actually be useful and helpful. And so I do that work. Well, that's the work we do in a spiritual mind treatment, right? I sense myself as having already had, whether I visualize it or feel it, or, I think those words get us into trouble.
Okay.
Because we want people to do it the way that we're comfortable with doing it. Whatever works to make it real for you. Do I think of myself as a subject matter expert? Well, until you said that, no, I really hadn't. But now I'm like, well, I've walked into it. Okay. And so now I'm more confident in being here with you. Right? That's what we're doing in our spiritual mind treatment. We're moving into, and so the other thing that is that place of moving into it is we move to the place where we're not doing our treatment for something. We're doing our treatment from the place of being it. And that's the point of treatment. You don't have to be there to start out when you first start your treatment. Your treatment is to get you to the place where you are all of a sudden speaking from, yes. I'm speaking from the beingness or the havingness or the doingness of it. That's the whole point of spiritual mind treatment. And then the universal
Yes.
law says, oh, okay, I got it. And makes it so.
And remaining in the belief. So the belief that we know when we first start, in that first step of recognizing, believing it, remaining in that belief even after we have stated the treatment, even after we've come out of it, even 6 hours later, staying in that, well, not in the knowing of the treatment, but remaining in the belief.
How are you using the term belief? What do you mean by belief in that statement?
Well, if I'm treating for something for myself, or knowing my life as something, and using spiritual mind treatment for that, then it's for me to believe that it's possible.
No, it's not. It's for you to accept that it's already happened.
It's for me to accept that it's already happened.
That's
so
why I push a little on the word belief, right? Because belief still means I have to believe in it as if it weren't true. But acceptance means, no, I've accepted it's true. So now I'm walking around, and I love the Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis. She calls it, you're walking around and answer prayer. You're just walking around and answer prayer. You already know it's done. So now you're just confidently moving, hearing, listening, doing whatever is there. Right. And so, and of course, when you don't have that feeling of acceptance that it's already done, then we do another spiritual mind treatment. We go back to our prayer, we deepen our conviction, and we deepen our consciousness. I don't really like the word believe either, because it seems like we're believing in something. No, we've become something.
Yes.
We've become that on the inside, and we do our spiritual mind treatment until we become it. And when we become it on the inside and we accept it on the inside, that's when the law moves to our manifestation, to the outward form of it.
Yes. Okay.
And if we have to keep doing that over and over and over again, that's okay. We're just building that space in our own consciousness.
So moving on just slightly here to this still with this knowing of acceptance, because I always have this difficulty with this final, this letting go, this releasing, those two words, because I have been, it's been flagged up for me a while ago, we can't let it go. I mean, there's nowhere to let it go into, because there's nowhere for it to go, because we are one in the one as the one. There's nowhere outside of it. So for me, it's become more about, I am accepting this at the end. I'm accepting this in my heart, in my knowing, in my being, in my allness. I'm accepting these words. I'm accepting that it's done, rather than letting it go and seeing it maybe spiraling off into something.
Right. Yeah. And, and it's good. I think it's really good to press on what we mean by these words, and what we actually, how we're visualizing what's happening. Because when I say the words let go, I don't think of it going into the law and spinning out somewhere. When I use the term let go, I think of let go.
Let go of control.
Let go, and because now I'm in that place of perfect trust. The law really doesn't want to do this. It's the infinite intelligence. Would you just let it go and let the law do its work? Because otherwise I'm going to be in there and saying, well, wait, that wasn't what I wanted. Oh, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to answer that phone call. Oh, no, I did not want it to show up this way. Right. Or where is it? I must not have done it right because it's not here yet. Right. All the ways in which I'm clinging on how it is going to happen,
how it should be. Right.
Yes. So that's how I think of letting go. Right.
Which I did for a while. I used to say, I'm letting go of control of this. I'm removing myself from the any kind of seeming whatever's happening. I'm just standing back from it.
Yes. And I'm trusting that there is an intelligence to the law that knows how to do it. And I may be part of the how. Right. Absolutely. Right. There's things I have to do, but I'm not, and that's what I think of in terms of letting go. Because otherwise the visual that I have is the law standing back going, well, apparently you've got it handled. You don't need me. Just go ahead. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I should get out of the way and let the law actually do what it does best.
Could be an idea.
Could be an idea.
Could be an idea.
Right. And I think it's perfectly fine to anthropomorphize some of these things as long as we know that's what we're doing to help get a hold of it, not making it a deity or a thing out there, right? But that's what myths and legends and, you know, metaphors and things, they help us get a hold of it as long as we never forget that that's what we're doing.
Right. So I'm going to take a little breather here to welcome in some beautiful beings that are here with us. Fiona, brilliant. I'm a spiritual human. Yes, you certainly are a spiritual human. Welcome here, Fiona. And Wayne, hello, Wayne, love wizard. Yes, we're all love wizards. And there we are, rainbow circle of hugs. Thank you, Wayne, for all of your wonderful comments. And Bonnie Gonzalez is here. Bonnie has her wonderful show coming up in a couple of hours' time, Your Doula for Grief, here on New Thought Media Network. So welcome, Bonnie. And we have a question here from Bonnie. Do you have a recommendation for a book that delves deeply into quantum physics that supports science of mind philosophy?
Oh man, I have a couple. So if you want some of the ones that sort of broke this ground, they're older, but they really broke the ground open. One is Gary Zukav's The Dancing Wu Li Masters, W-U, new word L-I, The Dancing Wu Li Masters. And Fritjof Capra wrote The Turning Point. Oh, yeah. Right? Those were sort of the break open ideas. The one that I would recommend that is the most, well, I have one that's called, one that I know of that's called, hang on a minute, let me get my books here. My favorite, most recent one is Quantum Physics for Hippies. Fabulous.
Love it.
It's a
Love
fabulous
the title.
I know, and it's right up our alley, and it's really lovely. And for people who are geeks like me and utter nerds like me, the book that I would recommend, hang on a minute, I really want to get you the title of it. And it really starts back in ancient philosophy and in the Christianity. And it moves us all the way through to quantum physics. And it is called, hang on. It That's called, shoot, wait a minute. Where is it? It is called The Unbearable Wholeness of Being.
The Unbearable Wholeness of Being.
The Unbearable Wholeness, not The Unbearable Lightness of Being. No. The Unbearable Wholeness. Hang on, I'm going to get you the author. It is brilliant. Now you got to be a little bit nerdy like me to, kind of, here we go. It's called The Unbearable Wholeness of Being, God, Evolution, and the Power of Love. It is mind-bendingly good. And it's by a woman named Ilio, I-L-I-O, and the last name is D-E-L-I-O, Ilio Delio. And it is a brilliant walk from ancient Western understanding all the way through to quantum physics. And it is gorgeous. And so I would highly recommend that. The last thing I would recommend, the last thing I would make, it's I-L-I-O. Her last name is I-L-I-O. That's her last name. And the last thing I would recommend is this extraordinary book that I'm reading right now. It's called On the Mystery of Being. On the Mystery of Being. And it is it's essays from all the people who were at a symposium on science and non-dual spirituality, which is what we are. We're a non-dual spirituality. Yes. And some of the writers are scientific, coming at it from that point of view. Some of the writers are non-dual spirituality people coming at it from that point of view. And they break it up to, from like theory and what's happening in creation to personal relationships to what does love really mean. They break it up into these chapters with all, I mean, the essays are short. They're, I don't know, 2 to 5 pages long. And you want to go,
wow.
So it's called On the Mystery of Being. And it's from the Contemporary Insights on the Congruence of Science and Spirituality. It's brilliant. It's brilliant material. And so, and again, I want to highlight the Quantum Physics for Hippies. Super fun, super excellent entrance into all of this.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because I love it that you've given such a broad spectrum of entry points here. Because it's great to, to dabble and to get that kind of easy read, and then take it a little bit further if something interests.
So this is the thing, because I think science and mysticism are meeting, right? They're meeting in the quantum field. And I think sometimes we overburden spiritual mind treatment and prayer with too much religious language. And if we can release some of the religious language, we can actually engage with it, because our scientific understanding supports the mystical reality. And now all of the questions we have about how does this really work, we don't have to believe in it. We actually can learn about it and use it and practice with it in an entirely different way, which takes it out of some magical faith sort of thing. And we really enter into the co-creative process, which is the truth of who we are and what we're here to do. And so that's one of the reasons why I love all of this scientific work that's being done. And when you can realize that in your spiritual mind treatment, you are collapsing the quantum field into a possibility that you have seen in your own consciousness, you're collapsing the quantum field into that, it has to actually come about because you have engaged in the co-creative process with the way reality operates. And man, and those are some of the most amazing experiences I have in my spiritual mind treatment, when I sense at every level of my being that that's what's happening.
So do you think, there's so many questions I want to ask you. Like, the first question is, when you just said you don't have to believe in it, when you said it, do you mean in this divine intelligence, or do you mean in the process?
You don't have to believe it. You don't have to believe in a God.
You don't have to believe in a God, right?
And you don't have to, and you don't have to actually believe in the process. Again, right, yes. I would refer to you. Do you believe in gravity? No, it's not something you question. Do you believe in the law of mathematics? Is 2 + 2 4? Well, and then you have to go, well, in algebra, it's not always. Okay, well, do you believe in the laws of algebra? No, you learn them and use them. And if you don't learn them correctly, you get the wrong answer. And you're not being punished by the law. Correctly. So there you go. You get the wrong answer.
So we're acknowledging that this it is simply how life works. This is it. And it's an acceptance of that, not a belief in it.
Yes. And a recognition that how life works is always for good.
Right.
And that's the love. That's the presence. That's the feeling of being so supported and so loved that everything that we need to be part of the co-creative process has already been given.
So what I'm really just blown away by here, by what you're saying, Reverend Petra, and let me just reintroduce you again here nearly at the end of the show. We're here with Reverend Dr. Petra Weldes, co-spiritual director with her wife, Reverend Karen Fry, who's off on amazing expeditions at the moment. I've been watching her on Facebook, by the way. And Reverend Petra is talking on a deeper level, really, about prayer. This is fantastic. I'm just feel so blessed and grateful to be here with this conversation. Thank you for being here on the Cause of Prayer.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I've lost track of the question that I was going to ask you.
Oh, you were going to ask something brilliant. I know it.
Idea of atheism. And, because in my mind, there's always been this feeling that, well, then if somebody doesn't believe in God, then how can they catch on to the idea of spiritual mind treatment, for example, or that there is one, because they're not in? And you've just kind of turned that completely on its head for me right now. And maybe for people that are watching, that it's not about believing in anything. It's about accepting this is the nature of life. This is the nature of the experience that we're having, of reality. And that we can use that.
Yes. And what we ascribe to God is that creator function. And the idea that there is a purpose to life. Well, we don't throw that out. There is a purpose to life. There is a creator function. We call it love. It's the impulse of the absolute undifferentiated reality to experience itself. If it is a oneness without expression, it can't experience itself. And it has loved so much that it has given everything into that creation, and it has actually become that creation. And in you and I, it's waking up. The oneness is waking up, and it requires individuality to wake up to itself. So we're that important. We are so important. We are the place, not the only place, let's be really clear, really any place where self-awareness is happening. But, we're particularly interested in ourselves, of course. And so we're a place where self-awareness, where the infinite undifferentiated reality is waking up to itself and getting to experience what it's like to be me and you, and then to see and experience how creation actually happens. So now the individual becomes so much more important, so much more necessary. Right. And we are now evolving that infinite into even more infinite things. And of course, the question is, are we doing that in alignment with life, love, joy? Or are we doing it in alignment with our egoic needs or our fears or our, I better get it because I think you're going to take it from me, blah, 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 right? Think war in Ukraine to racial inequity to climate issues, all of that are the outpicturing of us not being in alignment with that impulse of love, which is the impulse for all of it.
So just because we have just like 5 or 6 minutes left, and I'd really like to ask this final question, which ties into this piece of praying, using spiritual mind treatment. I'm not even going to use the word pray, using spiritual mind treatment for the knowing of others. Knowing that we are, there's one mind and there's no separation of any of it. How do we do that effectively for these situations, for these, these horrific experiences and things that we're hearing, and we want to make a change because, in our hearts, it doesn't feel aligned. How effectively can we use spiritual mind treatment to know this within our own consciousness, this healing on our planet?
We have to stop praying from our humanness. We have to pray. We have to do our spiritual work as spiritual beings, as light workers, as the representation or the place where the infinite is becoming individualized. I do it every night. And when I first started doing this a couple of years ago, and I was like over it, I was over being afraid. I was over being angry. I was over being, I don't know what to do. Every night, my spiritual mind treatment revolves around the things that are going on in the world. And when I first started doing it, I thought, well, who do you think you are that you're going to, So I had to really, and I really worked on my spiritual mind treatment. And it was like, well, wait, if there's one life, which is the power and presence and the intelligence to manage the universe, and I'm a place where that universe, that infinite reality is individualizing itself. And that recognition and that knowingness is a majority. So I am the universe speaking these words.
Right.
And that's enough. And that is enough to make a difference. And so that's the work that we have to do, is to recognize that we are not treating for something from our humanness. We are doing our spiritual mind treatment from the absolute truth of reality, and that we are speaking as individuals, claiming that for humanity and for our planet. And I believe beyond the shadow of a doubt that we are affecting the consciousness of the whole, just as when we do the work for ourselves, we're affecting our individual consciousness. I believe that beyond the shadow of a doubt.
So we're doing this so that we have a shift in our own consciousness, rather than an expectation of a situation changing.
Yes, because the shift in consciousness is what
is that
the situation, right? It's the acceptance. So, for instance, when I'm working with the issues of climate change, right, it's the acceptance that humanity is waking up to its own spiritual magnificence, and that it is in fact guided by the intelligence of the universe to find new ways to live on the planet that are healthy and wholesome for everybody, including the planet. Period. End of sentence. That's what I focus my spiritual mind treatment. That's what I accept. I accept until I stand in that place. And there's no part of me that questions that that is true. And I obviously have to do it every night, because then I watch the news and I have to do it again and again and again and again. But I keep doing it, and I'm less afraid. And now I see more and more and more and more. I see so much evidence that that's actually happening. And so that's our work. And then the more of us who do that, right, we are lending that consciousness to a fuller and richer mantle equivalent that of a new way of living on the planet, and a new way of healing issues rather than going to war, and whatever it is that we are doing our work around. Because it is one consciousness, right? So my consciousness is affecting the one consciousness. So let's go. Let's do it.
And I know we want, or I see that world where everyone is doing it. And yet I love what you're saying, because it takes that responsibility away from me thinking that everyone else has to do it. I have to do it, or I am being invited to do it if I want to.
Yes.
And it's not even up to me to say, well, let's everyone do it. Okay, that's wonderful. For this kind of quote unquote world that works for everyone. It begins with me. Yes. So, yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks for asking me.
Thank you so much for being here. I've got so many more questions. You're going to have to come back again.
Well, I love what you're doing with the show. I think it's fabulous. I support you 110%. It's fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for being here, and all of the work you're doing, the amazing work you're doing. I do just want to give that a where is it? I did create CSL Dallas. This is where you are. This is where anybody that's watching this right now or in the future, please go to CSL Dallas and see the exciting and beautiful work that Dr. Petra and Reverend Karen are doing, creating a community of, I just love it. It's so inspiring for me. Small groups coming together to be seen, to be heard, to be felt, to be understood, sharing groups that feel really exciting. So if you go to the website, CSL Dallas, you'll see the groups, and you can take part in all of that, whatever inspires you in your heart to move through and move forwards. And I know that you have a workshop coming up called Paint a New Picture. Great. I might sign up for that.
Yay. And it's csldallas.org.
csldallas.org. And I I did.
That's all right. Doesn't matter. I just said it out loud.
csldallas.org. There we go.
Oh, good. Laura, thank you so much.
Would you say a spiritual treatment, a quick one? I know I'm asking.
Quick.
Oh, we have a few minutes just to center in for a few minutes with Reverend Petra here.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So taking a moment with that deep breath to drop down into that place which is behind, underneath, around, and through all of creation. The infinite absolute reality, the one of which creation is simply an expression, a part of the one. And what I know to be true is that one infinite reality, that one infinite life, is the power and the presence that moves through all of creation. Its intention is for creation to express the impulses, love. And there is a wisdom and intelligence that guides the process. And this is eternally and forever going on. In this universe, and who knows, maybe in the multiverses, expression is always going on, guided by that love and by that intelligence. And what I know is that in each and every human being and every place where there is an awakening to this truth, there is an awakening to self-awareness. That consciousness is revealing itself to itself. And this is the truth, the identity of each one of us. And so I speak this word for the collective called humanity. Recognizing that humanity is, in fact, awakening to itself, to the power and the presence of this love, to the power and presence of this wisdom and intelligence that guides, guards, and directs creation as a whole. I declare that all of our leaders, whether they are political or corporate or religious or simply the leader of a life, each one is recognizing that we are jointly stewards of our planet, jointly stewards of this beautiful collective we call humanity. I affirm and declare that love is, in fact, the impulse that moves, and that wisdom and intelligence is, in fact, that which guides, and that that is so much stronger, clearer, more present than any sense of separation, any fear, any need to control, anything that is unlike this truth. And I cheerfully expect and accept that this is now revealing itself, whether it is in the wars, not just in Ukraine, but throughout the world, whether it is in the way in which we treat our planet, whether it is the way in which we treat people who appear to be different than us, whatever it is, I see it now emerging in so many different ways and places. I accept that this is the truth of humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence, and that it does, in fact, create a world that works for everyone and lives that work for each one of us in all of their diversity, uniqueness, and joyous expressions. Because I know it's true, and I know it's so. I know the law is already manifesting it, already making it so. I relax with confidence and complete trust into this truth so I can let it go. I let it be, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Reverend Petra Weldes, for being here, for shining your light and sharing your wisdom today on the Cosmic Prayer. And I look forward to knowing more and to looking through your site and to you coming back again and again, you know, to share, because you have so much to share and to that I can learn from, and I'm sure the viewers here can learn from as well. So thank you for being here. And
thank you. All my honor and pleasure.
Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, and Reverend Robert is here as well, Reverend Robert Brzezinski. Until next time on the Cosmic Prayer, knowing so much love and peace and joy in my heart for each and every one. And thank you for joining us today with Reverend Dr. Petra Weldes. Bye for now.